one of the best things about being a parent is these moments when our children teach us and show us wisdom in unexpected ways. And let us allow Gianna Floyd's youthful wisdom to guide us on our quest for justice and equality, to make her words true that her daddy changed the world. And let us deliver on her promise of a changed world. I'm going to go through some of the top-line COVID numbers and give an update. We have several important areas of the state response to update you on today. We now have 1,254 deaths in our state due to COVID, 1,512 deaths among COVID cases. There are more deaths ahead. The danger remains very real. 27,354 positive cases total. The good news, 7 of the last 14 days have a downward trend in newly reported cases, and 11 of the last 14 days have a downward trend in new hospitalizations. I shared my concern earlier this week and continue to about the impact of large groups of people gathering together on the virus. We will see that in the next week or two, and we'll be very careful. And I would encourage all those who are exercising their First Amendment rights to stay 6 feet apart from others where they can, and certainly to wear masks. And on the topic of masks, I want to really begin today by talking about the importance of wearing facial masks in public. A mask-wearing culture is our ticket to opening more quickly and sooner, and to staying safe, and saving lives. As I've said many times, we need to find a way to live with COVID-19 until there's a cure or vaccine. I know it's not easy, and these things are difficult, but honestly, wearing a mask is one of the easiest and most impactful things that you can do, that I can do, that we all can do. Limiting interactions with others, keeping 6 feet apart can be difficult. For our seniors and those with underlying health conditions, it's been extremely difficult to be stuck inside. And now I'm glad it's safe enough for people of all ages to consider safely recreating outdoors. It's been difficult getting test supplies, standing up testing sites, finding funding to hire the contact tracers we need. So by comparison with all these things that are very, very hard, wearing a mask is easy. Millions, if not billions of people do it around the world, and here in our great state, our masks are our passport to the Colorado that we love. I am proud today to unveil a new ad from our new public service announcement team about the importance of mask wearing. Here we go. Our lives have been shaken, disrupted. So many plans have been put on pause. It's been hard. It's been challenging. But we are Coloradans. We're strong and determined to keep moving forward. We're caring and willing to do what's necessary for ourselves and our community to get back on track. So let's not take a step backwards. Let's keep advancing together. Our masks are our passport to the Colorado we love. So don't be that guy. Wear a mask. And I want to thank Healthier Colorado, a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization, for their partnership in spreading this important message. I want to thank the Colorado Outdoor Advertising Association by posting this message on billboards across the state. And a special thanks to the City of Westminster, employee-owned Lever's Supermarkets, and the Early Bird Restaurant for opening up their location for our volunteer, crew, and actors. Pancho Cabrera for contributing the creatives, and Meta Lounge for the production. You know, we've seen modeling that was presented earlier this week that shows that if we want to avoid a catastrophic breach of our healthcare system, we want to reopen our economy completely, masks are absolutely essential. It's important if you're attending demonstrations. It's important if you're going to the store. Congregating outside is safer than congregating inside. But if you're still in a large crowd where transmission can occur, and it's not just important that you wear a mask, but that you talk to others about the life-saving benefits of wearing a mask and face covering. Make sure that we're exerting positive peer pressure on our friends, our loved ones, to do the right thing, be safe, stay 6 feet from others where they can, and wear a mask in public. And this is crucial, and I'm going to get personal here. It can be especially difficult, the data shows, with men. Studies show that men are particularly reluctant to wear masks because they somehow incorrectly think that somehow it might make them look weak or not cool. Well, you know what's weak? Being too insecure to wear a mask and then spreading coronavirus to your family when you get back home. You know what is cool? You know what also is not cool? Laying in bed for 2 weeks hooked up to equipment to save your life. So let's be cool, let's wear masks. Let's be smart, let's wear masks. Let's be strong. Let's wear masks. Let's stop putting ourselves and others at increased risk, and let's stop prolonging this crisis for everyone just because you don't think something's cool. That's not cool. At the end of the day, wearing a mask allows us to enjoy even more of the Colorado we love. So let's mask up Colorado. We're unveiling a new statewide executive order today that gives every establishment in our state the right to refuse service to anyone not wearing a mask. This protects our individual rights and our rights of businesses to deny service because our businesses, the people that work there, the other patrons, they should have a right to be protected from those who refuse to take the common sense step of wearing a mask. And private business establishments should have the right to deny service to those who might put their employees or their customers at health risk. With this executive order, it's fine for businesses across our state to say no shirt, no shoes, no mask, no service, if they choose. The protection for the rights of private businesses will go into effect immediately. That executive order has been signed and is going out today. I'm also announcing our state's plan to bolster our education system through the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund. It's called the GEAR Fund. That was part of the CARES Act. The $44 million from the federal government is intended to provide broad flexibility for governors to address the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on high-need students. I want to highlight the bulk of the CARES Act money went out through funding formulas to the school districts, $500 million for school districts, $25,000 for our BOCES, our Boards of Cooperative Services, $9 million for the Charter School Institute, $62,000 for the School for the Deaf and the Blind, $450 million to community colleges. That was absolutely critical. This is an additional piece that is administered by governors in a targeted way. That was formulaic money going out to where the students are. This is targeted money to address the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on high-need students from preschool all the way through higher education. You know, we know that even before coronavirus, our school system has been plagued by inequity. That has been a focus of my life, my service on the State Board of Education, my work founding two charter schools to serve at-risk youth and serving as superintendent of a school for new immigrants. Those inequalities, frankly, have been worsened by the COVID-19 crisis. The health impact, the economic impact, the social impact. And while we know that the transition to remote learning, the lack of socialization, the loss of benefits for in-person learning, these are affecting all Colorado kids, there's a disproportionate impact on students from low-income backgrounds, students who might have two working parents who can't be home with them to make sure they're doing their schoolwork, or a single parent home, students who are homeless and foster youth, students of color, English language learners, and students with disabilities and on individualized education plans. That's why the majority of this funding, the GEAR funding, will be utilized for a new preschool through grade 20, P20, that means preschool, all the way through bachelor degree, equity and innovation fund for school districts, for charter schools, for institutions of higher education, for our tribes, all invited to apply alone or in consortia, encouraging partnership. These funds will be deployed where they're needed the most to address the impact of COVID-19 by transforming schools and education, improving transitions between P12 and higher education, and improving student-centered learning. Importantly, we're going to give priority to schools or institutions that serve a high-needs population and those that are most impacted from a health perspective, economically and socially by COVID-19, schools in rural areas, and schools that are in priority improvement or turnaround, already facing challenges only made worse by layering the COVID challenges on top. The state of Colorado is also pursuing additional research funds to evaluate the impact of each of the grants on student outcomes so that we can replicate and expand what works. We'll be providing more information in the coming days and weeks about how to apply, and look forward to seeing the great creativity and innovative spirit of educators and communities across our state, and being able to be a partner in turning dreams into reality to improve student achievement and reduce the achievement gap. In addition, we're using a significant amount of the GEAR funding to build out our statewide digital learning infrastructure called Colorado Empowered Learning. Colorado Empowered Learning provides our school districts, our BOCES, charter schools with easily, fully designed online courses. We've talked a lot about kind of schools that might need to go online for a period if there's an outbreak or starting with a hybrid. This will help everybody access fully designed online courses, professional development, technical assistance to help with blended and online learning models available to students across our state, allowing districts and BOCES and charter schools greater access to this developed and adaptive virtual content at low or no cost, and really to help build the capacity of our teachers by expanding professional access virtually and coaching as well. This project is an important piece of making sure our school districts and schools are prepared for whatever may come this fall. The rest of the funding will go to support quality teacher recruitment and training through the Quality Teacher Recruitment Program to support our highest need school districts and to ensure that all qualified students with financial need in higher education receive direct support. And I want to thank our federal delegation for pushing for this funding. And I'm glad that we were able to use it in Colorado to promote innovation and serve the highest needs students who are most adversely affected by the economic, social, and health costs of COVID-19. Now I want to change gears a moment and talk about behavioral health. We know that in addition to a public health crisis and an economic crisis, we're also dealing with a mental health crisis. Isolation, fear, financial pressures, grief, anxiety. These are feelings we're all dealing with. And I want to encourage Coloradans to seek help if you need it. Please visit colorado.gov/CDHS to find assistance, or just contact Colorado Crisis Services. You can simply text the word TALK to 38255. You can call toll-free 844-493-8255 to have somebody to talk to, or visit coloradocrisisservices.org. Don't hesitate to reach out if you need help. Before the COVID crisis, I had appointed a behavioral health task force to study the issue of behavioral health in Colorado and provide recommendations to my office. And that report, as you know, has been rescheduled to the fall due to COVID-19. But I also called for them to add a COVID-19 behavioral health committee within the task force to look at the issues around behavioral health that stem from this pandemic. I'm proud to say that the committee will be publishing an interim report by mid-August outlining short and long-term impacts on the behavioral health system, and members are evaluating the behavioral health crisis response to COVID-19 and recommending additional improvements we can make. I'm also glad to reveal that the task force will be sponsored by Lieutenant Governor Diane Primavera, and I'm excited to announce the members of the committee, which we are going to show on the screen here, working with Lieutenant Governor Primavera on the COVID-19 mental health response. Thank you for everyone serving on this committee as we address the mental health side of this devastating pandemic. This is a difficult time for everybody. Families out of work, working with reduced hours, not being able to enjoy concerts, plays, sporting events, much less those who depend on these large gatherings in Colorado for earning a living. It's also particularly hard on older Coloradans, living in greater fear of a virus that has a greater fatality rate for them, living in nursing homes and congregate care facilities, unable to visit with their loved ones. Deuteronomy 5:16 commands us to honor your father and mother as the Lord commands, that your days may be long and that it may go well with you. When I was a child, my great-grandmother Ray Keller had Alzheimer's in her 90s and lived much of her final decade in a nursing home. But I saw the joy on her face and the joy on the faces of others in the home when me and my siblings came to visit. Having kids and grandkids and loved ones and friends visit is one of the best parts of enjoying the golden years. More than that, it gives our older Coloradans the strength and the fighting spirit to keep going. Many older Coloradans, including those in congregate care, have experienced additional mental and behavioral health challenges because some facilities have ended visitation in an effort to prevent the spread of coronavirus. Now, we know the virus is incredibly deadly inside nursing homes, which is why nursing homes and senior care facilities have taken extraordinary steps to reduce the risk of workers and visitors bringing the virus in. And every facility across our state now has in place an isolation plan in case an outbreak occurs. Today, I'm proud to announce that we are beginning the planning around launching the Lifeline Pass, a project that will encourage nursing homes and senior care facilities to allow visitation with very careful guidelines from relatives who test negative for coronavirus. As we work on the guidelines over the next week or so and seek input, this new program will allow people who test negative for coronavirus and have no known exposure and no symptoms to visit their loved ones. A 48-hour pass after a negative test can reduce the risk of spreading coronavirus to those who are most vulnerable and help make sure that our grandparents and parents can receive the love that we all need in a reasonably safe way. As Psalm 71:9 guides us, "Do not cast me off in the time of old age, forsake me not when my strength is spent." As we continue to make every effort to visit with our older loved ones virtually and on the telephone, maybe even by writing a good old-fashioned letter and putting a stamp on it, Lifeline Pass will provide another way to help us get through this pandemic together as safely as reasonably possible. We cannot sacrifice our elders through neglect and our efforts to save them from the virus. We need to be as compassionate as possible while being as safe as possible. We simply must do both, and Lifeline Pass will be a positive step in that direction. Finally, I want to give a special shout out to some of our frontline heroes who don't always get the recognition they deserve. From our staff at the Division of Youth Services facilities to our mental health facilities in Pueblo and Fort Logan, to our regional centers, for the IDD population and our veterans living centers. These are difficult jobs in the best of times, and I want to thank all of the men and women who work there. It's even more stressful when there's a very real threat to the residents that we care deeply about, as well as to staff. And I want us all to remember the critical, heroic work that these dedicated public servants are putting in and day out. Thank you, and I'd be honored to take some questions.
Governor, can you talk a little bit about what your thoughts are on the bill that's going through the legislature today regarding police accountability? It's very sweeping, and I know there have been concerns raised by law enforcement district attorneys, and even some within your own party are worried that it's moving too quickly.
There's no excuse for inaction. The time, frankly, is long past for when we as a state, we as a nation should have acted to address inequities in criminal law, restore trust in law enforcement, uphold our civil liberties as Americans, and lay the groundwork for future discussions of criminal and juvenile justice reform. And I'm looking forward to working with the legislature to make sure that we can meet the needs of this moment in time in a way that honors the memory of George Floyd and creates a real, lasting, and enduring change that can help restore trust in law enforcement and in our communities.
Does that mean you support the bill?
Well, as I said, there's no excuse not to pass a bill. They absolutely need to, and we're looking forward to working with legislators on doing that. I would be against any effort to thwart the passage of real reform in the wake of the murder of George Floyd.
Governor, this is Vinny Del Giudice at Bloomberg News in Denver. Two questions. Continuing on the reform bill for law enforcement, are there any particular changes you'd like to see on how police are overseen, monitored, and trained? And on COVID-19, do you consider Colorado's hospitals and health providers sufficiently supplied at this point if we have another outbreak, a spike? And has Colorado received just about everything it requested from the federal government? Thank you, sir.
I think I heard three questions there. Let's see if I can remember them. We have not received everything that we were expecting from the federal government at any point in this pandemic. We are also grateful for everything that we do receive. We continue to partner with the federal government around testing, around PPE. We've opened up our own supply chains to complement that. We know that while we're grateful for everything we receive, we know we can't count on those full numbers being met from the federal government, so we are planning around that. As I said in my testimony before the Energy and Commerce Committee of the House the other day, this week, we would deeply appreciate better transparency into what we're getting and when from the federal government. That remains elusive. We're grateful when we receive things. We frequently don't know until a day or two before. It would eliminate redundant ordering and make sure that we have the supplies we need on a timely basis. If we simply had the kind of relationship where we knew what we were getting and when we were getting it, completely understanding the deadlines could shift a day or two here or there, but we'd love to have a better sense of that to be able to plan out the weeks and months ahead. Our hospitals are doing well where we are today. But yes, we do worry about increases in coronavirus. It's still here. It's just as contagious as it was. As I've indicated, I'm worried about a potential spike from the large gatherings that have occurred, and of course, the overall increased social activities that people are undertaking across our state. So we're going to continue to watch the numbers carefully. We have worked with the hospitals to expand the number of ICU beds and make sure that we have supplies needed for what the modeling shows could be increases in the need in the coming months. Did I cover all your questions?
Sorry, yes, one more. It was for you. I guess I counted wrong. Sorry about that. As far as the legislation going through the Senate and the House on law enforcement,
Yeah.
are there any particular changes you would like to see? Anything you are looking at changing on how the police are overseen, monitored, or trained? Thank you very much again.
Yeah, I think that it's very important to include in the training process community policing, sensitivity training, making sure that from the very get-go, our officers and our law enforcement officials really understand the critical importance of how they treat people reflects on them and reflects on the respect and cooperation with law enforcement. I've long been a supporter of community policing models. It's one of the reasons that I've strongly opposed efforts to involve civil law enforcement with immigration enforcement. It's absolutely critical that our immigrant communities trust our law enforcement officials so they are willing to report crimes and cooperate in the investigation of crimes. It is same with other communities of color. Without that trust between law enforcement and the community, it thwarts the ability of our officers of the peace to investigate and prosecute crimes. Yeah, go ahead.
Governor, Nathaniel Meyer of Colorado Public Radio. Does the state plan to, how are you thinking about coronavirus in these protests? Are you thinking about handing out masks or hand sanitizer or literature or anything like that around these things?
Yeah, we did make some masks available. with James Coleman and Leslie Herod and Tay Anderson. We don't have a large state stockpile for any purpose, but we distributed, I think, thousands of masks. I would encourage everybody who's going to be in public, whether it's at a protest or at a park, please wear a mask, and that's really what today's public service announcement is all about. You owe it to yourself, you owe it to others. Try to stay 6 feet away from others where you can.
Yeah, this is Grant Stringer from the Aurora Sentinel. Yesterday, I saw Denver Mayor Michael Hancock and some of his aides join protesters physically downtown, and it essentially became a Q&A session about racism and policing. Some protesters remarked that you should do so as well and physically join them and interact with them. I wondered if you planned to do that and whether you would commit to that now.
Well, today I joined a MLK History Commission meeting with Dr. Vern Howard and others. And of course, in keeping with state health guidelines, I would be honored to meet with groups of 10 or less of those who passionately want to share their views with the governor.
Governor, there's been some confrontations between people who are not wearing masks or are wearing masks in stores. I think there was even a shooting in Aurora. Somebody was seriously injured. I'm curious what kind of guidance you're giving to restaurants or businesses or to diffuse these kinds of situations, and if you're worried that more are going to start happening if businesses start turning away people if they're not wearing a mask.
So yeah, that's what we hope to address through this. While it was likely that stores could have enforced mask wearing requirements before, it was a new area, it was a gray area, and providing this clarity that just as a store can say, if you don't wear shoes, you can't shop in our store, they can also say, if you don't wear a mask, you can't shop in our store. So I would argue that they could do that very likely before, but because of the uncertainty around it, it was causing a negative reaction. It is absolutely the right of a private business to say whether people have to wear shoes or shirts or masks when they shop in the store. And masks are, of course, even more important from a pandemic perspective than shoes or shirts.
Hello, my name is Meg Wing.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know if my mic was on. Meg Wingeter, Denver Post. I wanted to ask you, with your ad there and talking about masks bringing us back to the Colorado that we're used to, it seems like you're kind of indicating that masks are the key to getting back to normal. But the projections that were released this week showed that unless we maintain very high levels of social distancing, that there could be a spike that overwhelms hospitals as early as August. Do you think that masks are enough to avoid that scenario?
So the level of mask wearing was one of the variables that is in Dr. Samet's model. The more people wear masks in public, the less social distancing is required. So if we could snap our fingers and every Coloradan wore a mask, we would be back to a more normal Colorado sooner rather than later. So that's why it's so important, beyond the fact that it protects your life, protects the life of your loved ones and family. That should be enough for most people. But if you care about, living your lives to the fullest and enjoying the Colorado we love, masks are really the passport to that freedom. Sí.
¿Ha pensado en algunos cambios que favorezcan a las minorías como comunidades latinas o comunidad afroamericana?
Sí. En este momento es muy importante tener una conversación nacional y también en nuestro estado sobre las protecciones para minoridades, especialmente en las encontradas con la policía. Este momento es importante para reparar las relaciones entre la policía y comunidades de color. Y yo quiero trabajar con la Cámara para mejorar las reglas, para decir en un vía claro que la policía son una parte de nuestra comunidad y no están contra nuestra comunidad.
Governor, this is Ed Seelover with the Denver Business Journal. I know the Colorado Hotel and Lodging Association sent you a letter last week pleading for you to reopen group meetings at small sizes and even offering guidelines on how this could be done safely. Have you looked at that where you could give a thought on that particular proposal, or could you at least talk about your thoughts on opening events to more than 10 people again and when that could happen?
Yeah, there's a number of, under the state guidelines, there's a number of types of events and categories that can go up to 50 people. We are also very excited to work with county health departments to remove these kinds of onerous restrictions as soon as possible. There's about 24 counties in our state that already have variances in place. They don't all relate to the area that you indicated with the question, but some do. And the sooner that we can work with county health officials to do it in a safe way, the better for our economy, consistent with the goal of protecting the public health.
Last 2 questions.
Governor, police brutality certainly is a focus of these protests, but it seems like structural systemic racism is the underlying point here. And clearly this is happening all over the country. Much of it would only be fixed through federal legislation or local legislation. How are you thinking about this as the leader of the state government? Yeah,
this is not a moment where it's one bill and it's solved. Jesse asked about the bill. We need to pass a bill, but this is there's a long shadow of racism in our country, and it'll take the goodwill of men and women at the national level, the state level, the local level, to roll up their sleeves and get to work. Because it extends beyond criminal justice reform, educational equity, health equity. so many other areas that we've only begun to scratch the surface. So let's move forward on the challenge of the moment to finally end these pervasive inequities in Colorado and across America. Final question?
Governor,
Sorry, we have.
Go ahead. What?
Erica Meltzer
I'll go to you after Jesse. Yeah, go ahead.
Erica Meltzer from Chalkbeat. You've taken the opportunity to steer a large portion of federal LEAF money to schools, and we've been hearing from schools a lot of gratitude for this money, but also some concern that they won't have the flexibility to fully replace what they will lose in the state budget. What is your direction to schools in terms of how they can, can they use this money to just pay for a teacher that maybe is now harder to pay for because the state has cut their funding?
So, as a matter of principle, we won't let this pandemic destroy the bright future of Colorado. And we all know that our bright future depends on our ability to educate the next generation in our schools, in our community colleges, in our colleges. The pandemic is a setback, but it will not cost us our bright future. That is why we prioritize education in the CARES Act money, both the formulaic piece and the piece that I announced today. And yes, the allocation to school districts is not as flexible as state funding, but we are looking forward to work with them to make sure that they can use every dollar by the end of the calendar year in ways that are allowed under the CARES Act and consistent with their needs. So in general, it can absolutely go to COVID-related expenses with a broad definition, and we will fight, and there has been guidance from the federal level, that there is an expansive definition allowed of COVID-19 related expenses. Jesse, finish this off, please.
Given your support for Amendment 41 back when it passed and created the Independent Ethics Commission, I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on the fact that former Governor Hickenlooper defied the subpoena today, calling him to testify before the County.
Well, I, as you can imagine, have been focused on the issues of racial equity, and then for the last several months, the pandemic. Of course, I support a structure of ethics under Amendment 41. Before Amendment 41, there were no restrictions on lobbyists giving gifts to legislators. While Amendment 41 can continue to be improved through enabling legislation, it fundamentally put reasonable limits on gifts to legislators, as well as created a process, a fair quasi-judicial process for evaluating transgressions in as nonpartisan a way as possible. And certainly, I served on the Ethics Committee in the United States Congress as well during my time there. To the men and women who serve on that Ethics Commission, to those who serve in ethics committees, I know it's a thankless job. I want to thank them for doing that work. I want to thank them for putting their state over party and making sure that we can that people are not using these processes for partisan reasons, but there's an impartial assessment of what occurred and whether it's consistent with our ethics rules in Colorado. Thank you all so much.